All right, everybody, welcome back. We are here for another episode of Ozone Late Night. Not that it's night, as you can tell probably from the general lighting of the room, but whatever, that's what I call it. I can't change it now. We're too far in. But I am thrilled to be joined by I've talked many times about how much a fan I am of the Twit Network and everybody who's on there. And if you've gone there at all, which if you haven't, you should, you have likely heard at some point, somewhere, sometime, the voice of my guest for this particular episode. I am joined by Mikah Sargent, who is the host of iOS Today, Tech News Weekly, Hands on Tech, Hands on Mac, as well as filling in wherever and whenever needed. Mikah also hosts Clockwise over on the Relay.fm network. And if you want to find more information about, because I'm not going to go through an entire intro of every single thing, we'll be here for 45 minutes. So anything that I didn't mention, you can find over at chihuahua.coffee. And don't worry if I mispronounce anything, it'll all be in the show notes. Mikah, thank you for being here. How are you doing on this fine late afternoon, I guess, technically?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for that beautiful introduction. I think I do one too many podcasts, so it's always it's always surprising whenever I hear it said back to me.
Well, I'm just happy I got through it without stumbling, because normally I cannot read that many words or even remember that many words without getting tangled up. So I'm getting slightly better. 19 years in, I can actually read more than one sentence in a row and, not mangle it. So it's a historic day for us all, I guess. So
you've been doing this for 19 years?
Yeah, pathetic, isn't it? You
no,
wouldn't know
incredible.
It from what I do. No, I know it's crazy. Yeah, No, actually, it was like I'm sure a lot of people, Leo was the jumping off point when he started the original version of Twit. And he kept talking about how everybody should have a voice. Podcasting is that voice. I started doing it on my own, and it was awful with the $20 cheap mic. And somehow I'm still doing it and people still listen. I really can't explain it, but yeah. I've been doing this for quite a while.
Did you start podcasting before you started a personal blog, or did you do both at the same time? How did that go for you? Because go ahead.
It was about, sorry to cut you off. It was about the same time, because initially I was hosting the podcast myself, so I had to build a website for them. And then very quickly I figured out that was a bad idea. But I'll be honest, I never really got into blogging the way a lot of people did, because I'm a terrible writer. That's why I do audio, is because I can't write. I can't write in a way that sounds like I talk, and I don't like reading my writing if it sounds robotic, I guess, if that makes sense. So I never did the blogging thing because I'm just a really crappy writer. So no, it was all audio pretty much from the beginning, because I'm a native New Yorker, so I will never shut up. And so audio was sort of the natural fit for me, and that's kind of what I've done. So yeah, that's where it came from. But.
Nice. I mean, and you're also, though, a visual artist. That kind of makes me curious if the two of those, for you, have some sort of overlap, or if you kind of see them as two separate realms, because it can be kind of, one, for me, I feel like talking is very easy. That's part of the reason why I could, do it so much. But when I think of visual art, that's something that, for me, as having been a graphic designer at one point, really kind of sit down, get focused, lock in. Whereas I could just, even though I'm not a native New Yorker, I could keep talking and talking and talking forever. Do you feel like it has overlap for you, creative overlap for you?
Yes, I'm sad now that you're interviewing me and asking me questions, because it's supposed to, although I'm not an interviewer, I will say I am a terrible interviewer, so I won't even
I can't help it. It's what I do.
No, it's fine. I don't mind it, but you're right, because one of the things I do want to talk to you about is graphic design and your background, because for me, they are separate things. When I'm drawing, I do tend to really try to, my style of illustration is very precise. Clean lines. I don't like a lot of sketchiness, anything like that. So it's kind of the opposite of podcasting, where I don't really care. I don't do a lot of editing of mistakes or anything. It doesn't matter. So I think it is something similar to what you're talking about. But really what podcasting became was, I'm a failed artist, or at least I've always considered myself a failed artist. And so podcasting became my method of creating in a way where people responded and I saw success. So even though I never stopped drawing, I was a moron. When I was younger, I'm like, oh, I can draw. I'll be a comic book artist. I'll be the next Jim Lee when I get out of high school. Which is just stupid. Anybody with any actual sense of the world knows that it's to be successful as an illustrator or any creative outlet really is so much dependent on luck and X factors that you cannot really necessarily recreate, that was just a delusion from the beginning. But I got very upset about it for a long time. And I was like, well, fine. Then, I'm not an artist anymore, at least not a visual artist. And so podcasting was something where I was okay with it. It was somewhat successful. And that's where it came from, really.
And that breaks off now into two questions that I have, because the first one is you call yourself a failed artist. I would love to hear what your definition of a failed artist is. What do you mean when you say you're a failed artist?
Well, that's where I'm extraordinarily hypocritical, because I tell everybody there is no such thing as a failed artist. If you create something and someone responds to it, that's success, and you shouldn't define it that way. So, but that was a recent thing. That's probably within the last 8-9 years of me being 47 at this point. But a lot of the stretch of my life, I defined it as if nobody is seeing my work or paying me anything for it, then I failed. It's a terrible way to define success. It's awful. Because I've always had supportive people around me. So it's not like people were saying, yeah, you suck, stop drawing. It was never something like that. It was my internal criterion that was completely warped.
Right.
And I don't look at myself that way anymore. But that's why I did podcasting even when there was almost no audience. And I'm like, well, I have to have something that I feel like
something that people will see, something that people will enjoy, something that gives you that ability to kind of feel like you're putting something out into the world where you aren't invisible, which I totally understand. I do wonder, though, because you talked about it as a delusion at one point of thinking, you're going to be the next comic artist. I would not be surprised if many of the successful comic artists also had that delusion, because I think sometimes it is that delusion that's required to get you, into that point. So in that way, it's almost like you were backing yourself before other people were backing you. And I think that's cool, because some people don't have that in the first place. They don't have, they go, I think I could do this, but actually I don't think I can do this. And then they give up. And you were like, I think I'm going to be the next this and this. And that's something to celebrate. And I think that for one thing, it clearly has meant that you stuck with it. I have a family member who was an incredible artist at one point, and he had one rejection from some art school that he was applying for, and he put down the colored pencils after that and never picked them up again. And that's so sad, because that was talent. And so I don't know, the delusions of grandeur could be helpful sometimes.
Well, and to make sure I define it correctly, the delusion was that I'd get out of high school and instantly be successful. Not that I could, although, don't get me wrong, I got slapped around by life a lot harder than that in terms of, okay, you're not going to get paid anything for a very, 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 very long time. But it was this idea, because I was young and arrogant. I thought, okay, because in my high school, I was one of the better artists. So I thought, well, that's going to just translate automatically, that I didn't realize how much work and how many steps were involved. So that was the delusion, not that you can't be successful, because you're right. If you don't have any faith in your own ability, you're not going to go anywhere. So you do have to have that. But this idea, and I think a lot of young artists think that they'll just come out and they're going to find a job right away being an artist. It's like, it doesn't work. Now, it's easier in the modern world with Patreon and all these different avenues. Right. It is easier to actually be successful as an independent creator. When I was coming out of high school, none of this existed. I mean, T1 in college was a miracle. So there was not all of these avenues for it like there are now. So that's why my message now to a lot of people is, no, just make what you make. Someone will appreciate it. And don't let the idea that you have to be in a company with an official paycheck mean that that's what success is. So I've completely come around on what I thought myself when I was younger, because the modern world does allow for that. Now, for your background as a graphic designer, and I did listen to your episode with Jason Howell over on his Tech Explorer podcast, which I would also highly recommend because it's great. You had talked about the fact that you were in graphic design until I think you said somebody had said, I could see you writing for like one of these tech events. So did you work as a graphic designer? And then, because I don't think those details, I don't remember hearing the transition point, whether you actually worked as a graphic designer. Did you actually do that for a while and then transition out of it, or did you never do it?
So that requires, I think, some creative definitions as well, because I certainly worked as a graphic designer, but I did so at an age that was younger than people would probably consider like being a professional graphic designer. Basically, from freshman year of high school through sophomore year of college, I was a freelance graphic designer who had lots of different gigs, working for most of the time I was doing stuff locally. I did web design for a few different organizations and web design for individuals. And then I also did graphic design for one of the local news publications. Basically, it was kind of fun. They had newspaper advertisements for years, but they needed to figure out a way to transition their clients from the print newspaper to the website where they were trying to get people to start going as that transition was taking place. I'm from a smallish town originally, so, they were delayed, I guess, in terms of other places. And so my job was when a client would decide that they wanted to advertise on the website, I would get the original advertisements that were created for the newspaper and then the latest information, and I would have to translate that into different dimensions for different places on the page. And so, yeah, I did a lot of graphic design that way. I did some logo design work. Most of that was for people that I knew. A couple of instances where there were some businesses that I helped out. And I'm trying to think if there was, and also in high school, I did we had a really robust theater program in my high school. And so I did a lot of work for the theater program, doing posters and apparel and all that kind of thing. So I wasn't sort of learned in college, get a job out of college situation with graphic design, but it was something that I was so obsessed with throughout late middle school, even all throughout high school, up until college, when I decided to switch away from going into advertising, which is what I was originally going to do, hoping to be at, one of these advertising agencies doing graphic design work.
Do you miss it? Do you still do it at all? Or is it just kind of something you don't have time for anymore?
Now I don't know that I miss it. It's kind of hard to say. I don't think I actively yearn for it, but I take every opportunity to do graphic design stuff when I can. So sometimes that's very silly stuff. I've still got the skills that I had before. So occasionally, a little bit like what you do, sometimes someone will make a joke in the group chat and I will quickly put something together and share that. So an example was the other day, one of my dear friends is a photographer, or he's kind of a burgeoning photographer, and had taken this gorgeous photo that looked like it belonged on an indie film poster. And so I had said that. And then shortly I was like, oh, I need to make this into an indie film poster, and quickly put it together a la A24. And so I do a lot of that now, and that kind of scratches the itch. And then anytime somebody needs like a t-shirt design or something like that, they'll typically ask me. So I'll handle that as well. But I don't have the desire nor the time, especially, to sort of put myself out there for more work that's actual work. It's just, there's no room in my brain for that. It has to be something that I kind of just have the creative itch to do. But I do think I have maintained an eye, for sure, I would say, for design. And that comes through in different ways when I'm working on different projects.
Yeah, I have this thing. I keep wanting to do t-shirt designs. I have this obsession with t-shirts and coffee mugs. I have so many coffee mugs that I don't need because I'm like, ooh, this is a great design for a coffee mug.
This would be so cool to have on it. Yeah.
It is, but then you just have a cabinet full of coffee mugs.
Yes.
I'm never going to drink that much coffee in my life that I need all these different mugs.
I use the same 3 mugs, but they're all in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, why not get one in yellow? Oh, there's one in blue. Why not? Okay, get the yeah, it is a problem. I've gotten better about it, but because graphic design is something, when I was younger, I didn't really have the appreciation for it I do now. I kind of I looked down on it. I was like, oh, that's a failed illustrator. If you can't draw, then I guess you're into graphic design. Again, I was a moron. So when I was younger, I had really, really dumb thoughts about lots of things. So now I look at it and, I have within 20 feet of me, I've got 2 graphic design books that I could probably kill somebody with. They're so huge that span from like 1890 or something. It's one of these big Taschen books or Taskin. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about though. Yeah.
They're huge. They're huge. Hold on.
Yeah, exactly. Grab it.
Oh God. This thing, this book,
Beautiful.
this heavy tome, this is volume 1. I have both volumes, 1890 to 1959. I mean, the other day I was just sitting here reading this thing because I'm like, this is just so gorgeous, the stuff that people did.
Chock full of amazing work, I'm sure.
It really is amazing to me. And I don't know if you have this, but I definitely have this. I look at some of this stuff and for about 13 seconds, I'm like, I should just never draw anything again because I'm never, ever, ever going to do anything as amazing as what this individual did.
Yeah,
and this is probably one example of 100 things this person did. But even before we had modern magazines and all this stuff, the way that people could frame imagery and just be so creative with stuff, it like I said, in the one moment I'm like, and then immediately I'm like, no, that's the whole thing, is creativity is so powerful. You just have to keep doing it because you never know. So and
you get inspired, right? At least that's how it works for me. One of my all-time favorite documentaries is called Helvetica. I'm trying to remember the team behind it. Because it is, who is this? Gary Hustwit. Hustwit is the director. And Gary, or I guess I should say Hustwit's team did 2 other films, Objectified and Urbanized, and all of them are amazing. So Helvetica is all about graphic design. A documentary about graphic design, has some of the best graphic designers in it. And then Objectified is about product design. And Urbanized is about city design. And I used to just watch them on repeat. I would fall asleep to these films, these documentaries, because they were just so delightful, so enjoyable. And I would, walk away just feeling so inspired every time. And I, like I said, I could watch them over and over again, and I would still remain inspired. There's the design of the Citibank logo, which the original Citibank logo, I can't remember if it still has it. CITI, of course, and over the T is a little arc that is supposed to resemble an umbrella. And it was designed by Paula Scher. And Paula is one of my favorite graphic designers, but what she did was she goes in for the meeting and sits down and is talking to them. They're talking about how, it's this investment and you're protecting your investment and this and that and the other. And she sketches out the logo and she goes, oh, this will work. And that was the logo. And it took her 5 minutes to make. And they're like, we're paying you a lot of money for this. And she's like, yes, you're paying, but you're not paying me for the 5 minutes that it took me to make this logo. You're paying me for the 5 minutes it took to make this logo and the 15 years of experience that I had that let me make this in 5 minutes. And she's just so cool.
Oh, that's like the I Love New York thing that the guy did on the napkin. And, I think in a cab or something like that. Speaking of which, this is one of my favorite books. It is the New York City Transit Authority Graphic Standards Manual. This has everything on how they did literally, it's a page with a letter.
Yes!
And it's just pages with the letters. I love this book so much. Yeah, Standards Manual sells, I have the big limited edition one, but this is just the standard one. This is something I look at all the time because the subway system design, I fell in love with it when I was younger because it's just before you even understand what graphic design is, or can be, I should say, you get this sense of, okay, whoever did this understood you have to have clear directions. People have to understand what they're looking at. And you don't have that appreciation. Number one, when you're younger, you don't even think about it. You're like, oh, arrow points this way. You don't contemplate that you're internalizing the colors and the circles and the numbers and what they all mean and putting them together. But then to be able to know that there's a guide that some people sat down and said, okay, this has to be architected in a way that it is bulletproof, that nobody can make a mistake on it.
Yes.
And that's it's stunning once that locks in. It really, you start looking at everything that way. You just look around and go, wow, this is all, nothing here is accidental.
Street signs in different states is always really fun to see how different choices were made there. Washington is really fascinating, I think, and having Washington's face all over the place, but or his, I guess, silhouette all over the place. But that made me obsessed. The idea of the guide for the transit made me obsessed with just reading through different design guides. You know, whenever somebody would make a new logo type and a, new choice for branding, looking through those branding guides and just salivating at the choices that were made and the explanation for the choices that were made. And why we chose this typeface, why the typeface or the logo type does not match the typeface exactly because we made these decisions for it, and everything in between is just chef's kiss.
it really is wild because people don't understand it unless you're into this stuff anyway. They're like, well, why do you care about a style guide? And it's like, no, that's the key to the universe. You have to understand that this is where everything comes from.
Yes.
Because I have a whole shelf full of, my favorite thing about video games is never the stuff that's in the front. It's all the background stuff. Like the fake posters on the walls, the magazines that are on a chair that you just walk by, but somebody illustrated them, placed them. They have to be relational to the universe. They have to make sense. They can't look like they're out of place. The colors have to be correct. All that stuff is what I eat up. So everybody else is concerned with, you can see all the pores on the face or ray tracing reflection. I don't care about any of that. What I want to see is who made the poster in the background that most people didn't even think about. Who designed, like in Fallout. All that stuff has to look like an alternate 50s that developed nuclear power. So all of it is built around that. And that's the stuff I feed on. It's not whether the armor looks good.
I think that must be why I like The Sims so much, because there's so much of a rule set with The Sims. But more than that, it's one of the first games to really focus on things like having actual reflections of your character in the mirror. A lot of games even today still will skip that, for example. Having actual bubbles in the beverages that they're making, as opposed to just some sort of flat thing, and having a language that is specific so that you aren't distracted by the fact that they're communicating with each other, but you still get an understanding of what's taking place. And the clothing, having these different characters on them, the shows actually having little scenes that play out. All of that, I think, is so fun, and you just can appreciate the amount of work that went into a thing. And I do think that sometimes that is lost when you are, zooming past in a video game or what have you, watching a show, and you don't necessarily pay attention to something. I'm not great about rewatching movies and TV shows for the most part, but the ones that do draw me in, it's always fun to just go, wait, I didn't even see that last time. I didn't even notice they did that last time. And isn't it Netflix that has a site that is all of the different products? I think they have a site where they just have different products that come up in all of the different Netflix films and shows that have been produced. And that was a fun site to kind of look through and just see what they created. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the environmental detail, I agree. It's something that I think is unfortunately underappreciated. a lot of times you hear about costuming, which is, don't get me wrong, it's very important. That is absolutely vital. But you don't think about the set dressers and the what was constructed, even whether it's a real product that they found. Like I know with Schitt's Creek, they talked about how they went out and found all this stuff at like thrift shops and these small stores. They didn't have to make it. They just went out and bought it for cheap, but they wanted it to look like it fit within the world. And then there's other movies where they actually construct all that stuff. Or like I said, they find, famously, Phantom Menace at one point, Qui-Gon Jinn's talking into a lady's razor and they just made it look like a communicator, stuff like that. I like all that inventive type of stuff. It's interesting. So you don't rewatch a lot. If you watch a movie, it's usually like a one and done type of thing typically.
Almost always. So there are a few films that I've watched more than once and that I can watch more than once, including those 3 films, Helvetica, Objectified, and Urbanized. Although I haven't watched them in a long time. And then a movie called Adventureland. I don't know why, but that movie just stuck with me. It's about this guy who's going off to college, and his parents have promised him for years that they're going to pay, as his graduation gift, they're going to pay for him to go to Europe, I think, with his friends. And instead, they're like, oh, actually, we have money problems, and we're not even sure we're going to be able to pay for college, so you need to get a summer job. And he ends up working at this rundown theme park, Adventureland, and falls in love. And it's it's sort of a grungy.
Is this recent? Is this somewhat recent?
No, this has been, let me see, what year did Adventureland
so familiar,
come out?
But I don't think I've ever seen it. Interesting.
It came out in 2009.
Okay.
So I guess
for the films I watched, that is
recent.
Okay, so it's post 2000 because you have to remember I'm a lot older. So I'm watching like Casablanca and stuff like that. So I'm like, is it from 1947? I may have seen
it's more recent than that. Yeah. It's from the director of Superbad, but it is nothing like Superbad. It's not a comedy. It is really just, I really liked it anyway. So I used to rewatch that all the time, but I haven't really rewatched that either. The Office, I can rewatch over and over and over and over and over and over again, the US version of The Office. But outside of that, the only time that I have rewatched a film is because of the film that my partner wants to watch again, and then I will watch it with him. But yeah, if he's not wanting to watch something, I think there are other things I'd rather be doing than rewatching a film. I'm so
the opposite of that. I'm so into film because of the visuals. A lot of times, I'll be honest, a lot of it is the visual storytelling. But there's something so compelling to me about how people place cameras and capture these images that are, again, not accidental. Because I think that's another thing similar to the environmental stuff that people don't think about how specifically architected film is. So they don't necessarily know that there are no accidental shots. All this stuff has to be planned. Unless they're doing a specific thing where they're going and just capturing raw scenes, like they're supposed unscripted, that type of thing. But if it's a scripted film, an architected film, I have so much, I guess it seems like mysticism to me how somebody can put these things together because Stalker, a movie I never shut up about from 1979. It's a 3-hour-long philosophical science fiction Russian film where almost nothing happens, and I adore it as if it was a child. I've watched that movie so many times. I tried to get Aunt Pruitt, who to watch it. He gave up 20 minutes in, understandably.
20 minutes?
No. You know what? It's not for everybody. Stacey Higginbotham, someone else did love it, which was a huge success for me. When she said she enjoyed it, I went, yes, I have a convert, somebody. But it is not for most people. It is such a slow, deliberate plotting movie that I was not surprised that Aunt gave up on it because it's an art film. It's an art film, and there's very little that happens because it's really about, okay, what is being alive mean? It's 3 different characters who are trying to figure out what life means for them. And that's not going to be for everybody. It's like My Dinner with Andre, which a lot of people are like, I don't get it. Why? It's 2 people in a restaurant for 2 hours talking. It's like, okay, That's fine. You don't have to like it. I love it, but it's not for everybody. But I
I'm
rewatch
gonna have to
stuff
watch it.
all
I'm
the
gonna have to
time.
try to watch it for sure. Here's the thing. I like it's the same thing that applies for me with food. Because for some reason there's this lore about me that exists in the world. Because I have not provided proper nuance when it comes to talking about food. People I've found through these parasocial relationships think that I don't like food and that I don't like eating. And that is not the case. What I don't like is the fact that I have to eat every day, multiple times a day in many cases, just to stay alive. It is the fact that it is this task that when if I think about it too much, I'm like, for the rest of the time that I am alive, there are two things that I'm definitely going to have to do. Make sure I've got water and make sure I'm feeding myself. And sometimes that feels unfair because it's like it's an unwieldy thing where day to day, I'm not engaged by the concept of making and eating food, and so I just kind of get it over with. However, because I find the day-to-day slog so boring and kind of annoying, I am all about the experience of food, and that part of it, like it matters to me. And so, for example, my whole family, like my immediate family, they all have weird, I shouldn't say it is not weird, but they have textural issues for what they consider to be weird textures. So they don't like pears. They're gritty for them. They don't like coconut. They don't like how it chews. I don't think they like the flavor in many cases either. They don't like, there's quite a few others that, I'm not going to go through the whole list. I, on the other hand, love pears because they're gritty. That's a unique thing for me, a unique experience. I love coconut because of the way that it makes that feeling in your mouth, and I like the taste of it. My partner doesn't like pineapple. I think pineapple's amazing. Doesn't like pickles and pickled foods. Love all of that. So it's the unique stuff that really stands out to me. He hated The Bear, the show, The Bear, and I found it to be masterful in so many different instances, in particular the Thanksgiving or Christmas episode. I can't remember. I think it was Thanksgiving, and was just enraptured and spellbound by the performances. So I'm interested to see how this Stalker works for me because, yeah, while I really think part of the issue for me, Joe, is that at where I am right now, I think that I am feeling sort of the sponge that is my passion for things is saturated. And so I don't necessarily have more room to pour in more passions to get passionate about. And so I don't, because when I want to get passionate about something, when I want to engage with something and understand something and really take it in, that means learning the terminology, and I don't have room for film studies right now. And so I think that that's where it is for me, is like, I can watch a film and or a show or whatever, and I can appreciate the performances for one. I can appreciate a lot of the unique things that happen. I can appreciate something that, because I really hone in on voices, I can almost always tell when an actor is masking an accent. Those kinds of things will really keep me engaged and interested. I know that if I had the time and if the sponge wasn't full at the moment, I could easily fall into that as well, where suddenly I'm starting to notice I can give the terms behind what kind of shot this is and what this is and how this is different from that film. But I wonder too, if there's an aspect of it that is, it's almost a gate. It's almost gatekeep in a way, from film buffs as a whole. And what I mean by that is, you sometimes see the nerds who love movies and who love films, because there is a difference for them, who will sort of make it clear to you that the way you're appreciating this will never come close to the way that they appreciate this, because for them, it's you never would have noticed this scene. You wouldn't have even noticed that the person said this in that place. And you can't name the number of times that they said rosebud in that film. And you know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of a thing. And I think that is I'm going to quickly move, you know what I mean? Like I turn away from that kind of a deal. I'm like, okay, maybe that's not for me then. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot, I guess, wrapped up in that whenever I start to pull it apart. But I always, one example, really enjoyed, friend of all and a former head engineer at Twit, Jammer B, his Mr. Slanina, his appreciation of films and shows and just letting him go, like letting him talk about his appreciation is always one of the most enjoyable things. So yeah, I love when people just go and they're passionate about it. And it feels like they're trying to bring you into their passion as opposed to trying to keep you outside of their passion. That's the difference.
Yeah, that is a real thing. Cause I was like that for a while where I was like, well, if you're not watching Sundance, then I don't know why you watch films at all. Like, again, an idiot, but I've again modified that where it's like, I want everybody to like whatever they like. So whatever that is, I don't like Michael Bay films, but I wouldn't call somebody who likes them an idiot. I wouldn't say, well, you're watching a junky action film. I don't enjoy them, but if you do, then that's the best films for you. That's what it should be, is there's so much that you can be, there's so much access to so much that I think the goal should be, well, find what you like and indulge in that. Go with whatever that is. And that's why a lot of times, like with Stalker, because I actually met up with Ant last weekend or the weekend before, I don't remember, and I was like, here, look at this, because I was like, I just want to show you what the thing that I love about this is. And I just showed him this one shot where they built a camera rig and they did this one long continuous shot, and then he got what it was. I was like, yeah, you can just skip past the boring stuff, but get to that imagery, because as a photographer, I'm like, you have to see what they got, because nobody can capture these again, because unfortunately what they didn't know when they were making the film was where they were filming was exceptionally toxic, and it likely killed a lot of them, not immediately, but later.
Are you kidding me?
No. This was 70 whatever. So there wasn't, and it was in Russia. So it wasn't
so I saw that it was Russian.
Yes.
But I didn't know if it was in Russia. So it was actually in Russia. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and countries in that area, but also at a time where I don't think people were really thinking about, EPA stuff, that there wasn't the awareness. Yeah. So there's points where you can see the air's got all this stuff in it, and then you think, wait a minute, they're not wearing masks. They're breathing. It was like a paper mill, and it's just the air is filled with this paper pulp, and they were just breathing it in. And so I'm like, not only did you have the artistry, but they will literally never be able to get this again, because that doesn't exist anymore. So I'm like, you got to watch just those parts to see the artistry of how they get those images, because there are such beautiful, haunting shots. And again, there's parts where there's waterfalls. They were in the water. That water was filled with toxic sludge and stuff, and they didn't know. That's why there's this weird foam to it. And it's beautiful, but it's not worth it. I would never say, oh, it was worth them dying. No, it's not. But that's what exists. So I'm like, no, you should see that just to appreciate it. But I wouldn't say because when Ant said, yeah, I tried, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say you're not going to be like, well, you
don't understand movies or films, and
clearly you're not sophisticated. No. That's, I don't know why. I don't understand people who want to alienate others from enjoying something. I don't understand what that does for them. I can't figure out what internal thing in them must be broken where I have to lord something over somebody else. I don't have a theory. I don't get it.
I do. I think so. Because I was talking to, again, my partner about this as well, because it had come up for him. Somebody was doing that to him. I think that for many of us, if we look back at our younger selves, especially, middle school, high school, standing out with a passion was looked down upon, right? You try to fit in and fit in with the groupthink to hide yourself. And if you choose not to, if you decide that you're going to be that theater kid or that debate kid or that person who's into something alt, you are looked down upon or teased or whatever it happens to be from the larger majority, because there's this herd mentality. And so you spend so much time getting put down that later on, when it comes to a period of time where you are no longer like, you can then choose to surround yourself with the people who you want to surround yourself with, and you can be into the things that you're into without a lot of criticism from other people, and you are instead supported in so many ways for the things that you enjoy because you've chosen to have those people around you. Or you also, there's some cases where you just get to a point where you're going, I don't care what people think, which is a great way to feel as well. I think sometimes that it's sort of like getting losing like having those ties cut, the ties of being ostracized, of being taken down, almost like initializes this whiplash effect where now suddenly you're free to be you, but you feel like you have to protect that thing that at one point you were ostracized for, that you're no longer ostracized for, or, othered, or whatever you want to call it. And so you're like, this is my passion. I went through the trenches for my passion, and I'm going to protect this with my whole heart. And in doing so, then you are at times like pushing people away and making them feel like they don't get it, they don't understand. And it's unfortunate, but I just think it's all sort of that what is the word I'm looking for? Subconscious. There we go. I was going to say sub-Saharan. I don't know what my brain's doing. Subconscious, like shift from being bullied to, in some ways, kind of being a bully, even though we don't realize it.
Well, I know that, generally it's what is it? Hurt people, like
Hurt
it's
people, hurt
abusers
people,
abuse,
yeah.
that type of thing. I guess for me, it's just at some point, some switch got flipped where I thought, well, I'd rather people like the weird stuff I like, because then I'm not as off here screaming like, hey, Stalker's good. It's good. It's really good. And it's like, people are looking at me like, so if I can get people to like it, then it seems like, I don't know. I guess for me, it's at this point, I want as many people on board as opposed to, I guess I just don't need to hoard all the stuff for myself, because I don't know what the value is for that. I guess secret knowledge to some people is the thing. And I don't have that anymore. I may have at one point, but I kind of let that go because
I definitely had it at one point, for sure. And letting it go was a beautiful thing. And I will say it can crop up at sometimes I've honestly I think I've in many ways moved away from, sort of fandom culture at all. There was a time where I was super, devoted fan of certain things and certain people. And I think the closest I come to being a fan of like a person in particular would be Beyonce. I still think that she's an incredible artist and performer, and in many ways a great humanitarian in person. But even that, I think that if I were to walk into the same room as her, it wouldn't be that sort of like my heart skips a beat and I fall to the ground and faint because we're in the same room. I think I could just have a normal conversation with her. And so, yeah, I think because of that, whatever that was, that loss of fandom, it has resulted in me too not feeling like I have this thing that I have to protect. Where before it would be, somebody started to get into a band that I liked, and they would say what their favorite song was, and it was, one that played on the radio a lot or something, and you're going, oh, you have no idea. You've got to hear the B-sides. And yeah, it's just kind of like, hey, that's cool that you like that too. Where before it was kind of like, no, you can't, if you're going to listen to this. I think that it came from a good place. And I think for some people it does too, because it was kind of like, you don't understand just how good this is. Let me show you the deeper parts of this. Even if on the front of it, it was kind of like that toxic bit. It was more going, oh no, you stopped before you really got into it, right? Now I want to take it to the next level. But usually the person didn't want to take it to the next level because they didn't care about it as much as I did. Yeah, I just think I went, okay, it's fine. People can like what they like, how they like it, right? That's the thing. Like what you like, how you like it. And I'll be over here liking what I like, how I like it. And if we can match up in some of those ways, super cool. But if we don't, that's all right too.
Yeah, I ran into that with my wife because we were doing a thing where, and we're going to do it again. And part of this is because I literally just want to design little fake movie tickets. We're going to do a summer film series. We're going to pick films. And I'm going to make little tickets.
That's awesome.
I just want to do it. I just want to make
graphic
little tickets.
design.
So I'll be like, all right, this week's movie. Yeah, it's like, it was half an excuse for me just to make these things because I'm like, oh, that'll be cute. But we were doing a thing where we were each picking a movie for each weekend. And we're going along, and I'm like, okay. And I had a couple that I knew were sure bets. Like, she'd never seen The Shawshank Redemption. I'm like, oh, surefire. I know she's going to insert tears, the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, I knew it. And then I went out on a limb, and I was like, all right, we're going to watch Hard Boiled, which is a Hong Kong, basically, I don't know, crime flick. And I forgot, because I love that movie so much, and I think that the actors in it are so good, how much gunfire and how much blood and squibs there are, which she's not into. And we got to a point, and I'm like, oh. And at the end, she's like, why would you think I'd like that? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I just got it, yeah, because I love it, but I forgot how many, I mean, people get shot for like 30 minutes, and it's like RoboCop, where they're just going and squibs, and I'm like, oh. Because I forget cringing. That stuff.
Have you ever?
Yeah, but I sat there and went, oh.
Did you end up stopping? She still wanted to watch it?
No. She went. She made it through it. It wasn't. If she had said, I don't want to watch this anymore, I would have. But I realized it, I think, and she was being nice to me by going along with it. So I was like, but I was at the end, I'm like, yes, got it. File that away as nope. But
that one's just for me.
See, I was smart though, because I front loaded with the stuff I knew she'd like that she'd never seen. So I'm like, okay, I've got credit, so I could lose some.
There you go.
I can
you were using some of your credit.
Yes. It's a thing where I'm like, okay, I can lose, like the stamina bar is not going to go past the midway point. So as long as, if I don't start with the riskier stuff and you'll be fine. So it was a scenario. And that was the only real one like that. But I realized that I was like, oh, okay.
Do you still have the tickets?
Enthusiasm for this. What's that?
Do you still have the tickets?
No, I've never done it before. I'm going to make them. This is going to be our first
time
one.
You're going to do it. Got it.
Yeah. I'm going to make it because I thought of it. I meant to do it when we did it the last time, and I forgot. So this time, no. She doesn't know that. Luckily, she's not home yet. So I'm going to print them at work. I'm going to, like, a nice cardboard. I'm going to just so I'm going to say, oh, what movie you want to watch? And I can just take the template, put it in there, put it there with the popcorn, the whole thing. Like, I'm going to just do the whole thing.
Yeah,
it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast.
Speaking of sort of making, I would love to hear about anything you're doing in the maker sort of gadgety gear space. But that reminded me, because I back when I lived in California, at one point I purchased a Cricut. And for people who aren't familiar with it or are listening, a Cricut is it's a cutting machine, a sort of computerized cutting machine, and it's CRICUT, Cricut. And so you can cut different materials, vinyl, paper, wood, even if it's balsa wood, and also use it to draw and write, computerized as well. And I had used it a couple of times there, but since moving to Portland, I struck up some D&D. I'm running a D&D campaign in person with some of our friends here. And so I've had the opportunity to use it a bit more for different things. And that has been quite a bit of fun playing around with. Doing simple things like cutting out little cards, but also, depending on what you're doing, you might have handouts. You might have, I'm trying to think of a good example.
Well, character sheets is something that if I was into D&D, which I just never have been for whatever reason, I don't know why. I was in the prime spot when I was younger that everybody was playing it for whatever reason. I just never, I guess because I was shyer and I just didn't like the idea of being in a group and doing that. I guess because I was always kind of a solitary kid. So it was probably more that. But like the idea of now thinking, I was like, oh, I could have designed the character sheets and I could have drawn the characters. Like I would have been the person saying, describe your character. Okay. There's your sheet. Blah, blah,
and
blah,
that is incredibly valuable. That would have been so amazing. Yes.
Yeah, I probably would have been more popular if I'd done that. If I was warp back in time and say, hey, do that. And,
yes, draw those characters.
But, right.
But I use it too. For example, when I first moved, or after we moved to Portland, let me go back. While we were in California, we lived in Petaluma. And I remember my partner learning that Petaluma was at one point the chicken capital of the United States. I don't think it has that title any longer, but someone might correct me if I'm wrong there. But anyway, chicken capital of the United States. And after he learned that, he loved telling people that we lived in the chicken town. And so as a bit of emotional warfare, I designed a bumper sticker for my car because I'm not really a bumper sticker person. I've not really ever been big into bumper stickers, but when I got rid of my and I'm not big into cars either. He's very much into cars and I'm not. And so I drove for the longest time a 2004 Dodge Stratus. And I always said I would drive that thing until it died. He somehow convinced me to not drive it until it died because I basically junked it. It was sold for like $200 and then got a little Subaru Impreza. And when I got it, he's like, oh, you should add some bumper stickers. No, I don't really want to do that. So anyway, now to the emotional warfare, Chicken Town, right? So he kept bugging me about getting a bumper sticker. So I pulled open Illustrator and did up Petaluma. And then next to it, I did this sort of icon of a chicken with an egg laying in the grass and put it next to Petaluma. And then put it into my Cricut, cut out essentially permanent vinyl, but basically that just means it's not going to wash away in the rain, and put it on the back of my car. And the next time he came home, he saw Petaluma on the back of my car with the chicken next to it. He's like, that's the bumper sticker you chose? I was like, actually, I made it. But anyway, so when we moved to Portland, this is the city of Roses. I didn't
choose it. I had to create it. Not only did I choose that, I made that just for you.
Just for you. What do you think? But this is the city of roses. So I scraped off the old Petaluma chicken and I replaced it with this. I find it delightful little rose with, Portland written next to it. So I've done it for that. I have done birthday cards and anniversary cards and all sorts of stuff with it. It's really quite cool what you can do because it just depends on what material you use with it. So you can print out, I've made some stickers, for example. Anyway, I find this thing a lot of fun, but it also made me think about just gear in general. And for the longest time, I have always said, I want a pressure washer. And just the other day, I finally decided to treat myself to a pressure washer. And I don't know about you, but if there's one thing that just is very satisfying, it's watching pressure washer videos. I have discovered that the only thing more satisfying than watching pressure washer videos is actually pressure washing something. So we've got this back patio, cement patio, that is underneath a walnut tree. And then there's also a pine or some sort of coniferous tree. I don't know if it's pine, but a coniferous tree in our yard, our backyard. And the coniferous tree throughout the summer drops these ugly, sort of soft pine cones. They look like a brown caterpillar and they stain because they're soft and they're kind of
I've
wet.
seen
And
these
then,
things. I know what you're
yes,
talking about. Oh, it would
yes,
drive me
they're so
crazy.
gross, and
Oh,
and because it rains here so often, then it kind of stains. And then what's going to happen is, as summer goes on, then the walnut tree is going to start getting walnuts, and then the squirrels are going to start knocking the walnuts down, and so then it puts like green and yellow stains all over the pavement. And so the other day I went out there, had my audiobook in my ears, just pressure washing, and it was so satisfying. Oh my goodness. And now I'm just trying to think of all of the ways I can use the pressure washer for
no, I
whatever.
get, yeah, I understand that completely because I'm that way too. The things like that, like I love doing dishes. My wife never has to do the
Yes.
dishes. I love doing dishes, and it's like we have a dishwasher. It never
Oh,
gets
you do them by
used.
hand?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh
So
yeah,
when I
because
got
that's the
excited
only
for
way to
you,
really do them, in my
I
opinion. Is if
love
I want
that.
them clean, I'm doing them by hand, and I like
I
doing
love
it.
that for you. So my yes was getting excited at you having, like, for understanding. I could never. The dishes I hate. Maybe it's because growing up, so I'm the oldest of four, and growing up, I got hit with chores. Fine, you do chores as a kid, but I was always told that as my siblings started to get older, then they would get chores too. They, throughout their existence, would insist that they couldn't do chores because they didn't know how. And then the times whenever they were tested out, they did such a poor job at it that essentially for my whole, young life, I was the one doing the chores. So I think that has me particularly averse to doing dishes. However, the other thing that I love to do that sort of scratches that same itch, I am very allergic to grass. I love mowing the lawn. I find mowing the lawn so satisfying. The way that it goes from this mess to just this beautiful, perfectly manicured all level. Oh, there's something so satisfying about that. So I put on my dust mask. I get my eye drops going, my allergy eye drops going. I go out there again, audiobook in ears with my noise canceling AirPods, and just go to town. One thing that was kind of fun in this weird person that I am was we lived in a townhome in California, so we didn't have any lawn to mow. And moving here, the place that we're renting has a huge lawn. Well, it has a huge yard with a pretty small actual lawn portion, front and back. And so we had to get a mower. Well, Portland just essentially outlawed gas mowers last year. I say essentially because it's basically like a tax credit situation where no store would
They
want to carry.
incentivize
Yeah, they
non-gas.
incentivize.
Right,
Yes,
right.
exactly. So no store is going to carry a gas motor or mower, and I didn't know that. Frankly, I didn't even know how bad gas mowers are for the environment in terms of how much. It's mostly because cars have all of this stuff between the engine and the exhaust that filters it out, and gas mowers do not. And so it's like 10
It's
times worse
raw
than a.
exhaust, like of oil and gas burning, just
Yeah,
belching out. Yeah,
it's
it's bad.
wild.
It's
And so
bad.
I only learned that this year. Went to the to Home Depot to get I'm doing the research. This is the best mower, thinking gas, and it says it's in stock. We get there and it's not in stock. I had to ask, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're like phasing those out." So anyway, we did research, found a great electric mower, and oh, I love that thing. And then shortly after that, I decided to get a. Depending on where you live, these are called different things. Some people call them string trimmers. Some people call them edge trimmers. Where I'm from, we called them weed eaters. And so
I
I
think you're
got one of
talking about a weed
those.
whacker. You're talking
A
about the
weed
thing with
whacker. Yeah,
the
that's the other
strings on
term.
the end that whips around. Yeah, it's a weed whacker.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Yeah.
weed whacker for you. I called it weed eater growing up in Missouri. Who was it? I can't remember who it was, but somebody else called it a string trimmer, which I guess is the technical term because that's what it was called online, but who cares? And then also a leaf blower because that walnut tree also sheds so many leaves, this thing. So anyway, I am living my best like dad life and I am loving it. And it's just so satisfying. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, I just bought well, I always used to call these sawzalls. I guess they're called reciprocating saws. It's
Oh,
well
yeah.
because our dog has had like hip problems and now has arthritis. So we have a big ramp that comes down from the house for her. But I want to build one because we have like a concrete patio as well. But there's a lip to it that's probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 inches. And I feel like it's just enough that now it's like she's feeling it when she comes down. So I'm going to build a ramp. So I'm like, okay, I have a table saw, but that's really not made for that. And I didn't want to get one of those big circular saws because I don't know, I don't use that enough, but I'm like, oh, one of these. Well, I can cut branches and everything else. So I just got it and it's this big DeWalt thing. And I'm like, this is magnificent. I haven't used it yet. I have to go and get the wood for it this weekend, but I'm like, this is great, man, because I don't do my father was a carpenter. He could make anything. I've never had that skill. It's just not something I'm usually good at. But once in a while, if I can kind of even it out in my head, see the angles correctly, then I'm like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. So yeah, I was like, I'm going to get the saw. I'm going to make this ramp and I'm going to put like carpeting on it. And that way she can just come down and go up it really
That's
easy.
awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That'll be because that's the kind of stuff I like keeping everything in working order for my wife and my dog. That's my thing.
Yep.
So I have a whole system. Like Mondays, I wash like towels and her bedding, like the dog's bedding, all that stuff. I'm like, okay. Same thing. I've got the earphones in. I'm like, okay, this. I know what order I'm doing them in. I got a whole system for it. Fridays, like vacuum,
Nice.
like change the sheets. Like I've got this whole because I'm very. It's got to be some form of.
No, you don't
OCD
work
or
from
whatever.
home, do you?
No,
said you
no,
were
I
gonna
don't.
go
So
into
I
the
have to like
office, so-
block it out.
Got it. Got it.
But I have it all like I have it inside an hour. Like I've got my timing down, so I know if, it's funny because if something goes wrong, I'm like, hey, you're eating into my hour. But that's all right. Like I can do it. But that's the same thing with like dishes. Like I have to have knives have to be in this drying thing, forks then spoons. It has to be knives, forks, and
see,
spoons.
that's why I don't. So I used to. We have a dishwasher. I've basically there are two stipulations that I will always have as a renter looking for a place, or I guess it's three now. I've come up with three. It needs to have AC because I am a hot sleeper. No matter what it is, I always sleep hot.
I hate heat.
And
I hate it.
yeah, I hate heat as well. I need to have a dishwasher because I personally don't like doing the dishes, and I need washer and dryer in unit. That's one that I could give up if I had to, but I will fight tooth and nail to not have to give that up. And I only like, even if they're just the hookups and I've got to buy it, I'm happy to do that. Frankly, I'd rather buy my own than use whatever's there. But anyway, so with the one being the dishwasher, like I've always loaded the dishwasher. I'm happy to have a dishwasher. It's fantastic. However, when we moved here, my partner was like, so, because we met right before the pandemic kicked off. And so we kind of had to quickly move into sort of the next phase of the relationship, meaning that he basically had a choice, which was he was working at Starbucks at the time, which meant that he was exposed to the public. And he had the choice of going back to his family's place where his grandmother lived and also his two young family members, and or he could stay with me because I had a place and everything, obviously moving to California. And so, we talked about it and stuff. And so we kind of had to move in together quicker than you typically would, but obviously it worked out for us as, now we're engaged at this point. But anyway, because he was moving into my space in that way, it meant that a lot of the behaviors that I'd had up to that point, like loading the dishwasher, stayed the same. And, he loaded sometime, I'd load it sometime. But when we moved here and it was our place together, he's like, so I really don't like the way that you load the dishwasher. And I said, I would just like to do it instead. So he would very much get you when you say you've got a particular way that the forks and the knives and the spoons go. And to this day, I still don't know what the exact formula is, but sometimes I'll clear out the sink. I'll make room in the sink by putting some stuff into the dishwasher, and I'll come back later and he's closing the dishwasher because he's just moved it around exactly how it needs to be. And you know what? It's one of those things where I can respect it. I'm not going to yuck your yum. If that's how you need to have it, fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, on the rare occasions where she does dishes, it's not like I then follow her and move them, but I'll look at them and I'll be like, so what I do instead is I'm going to dry these and put these away right now. And that way they're removed without it being really obvious that I'm sitting here going, you didn't arrange them correctly. I don't want to be that person.
You're
like,
sly. You're sly.
Yeah. I understand it's me. And it really doesn't, like, intellectually, I know it doesn't matter where they are in a drying rack. It's that they're in a drying rack. And yet, for whatever reason, it bothers me to mix cutlery in a drying rack. I don't know why that is, but it does. It's not like I had a traumatic experience where a drying rack fell on me with mixed cutlery and it cut me up. And I could say, yes, it's a traumatic, repressed whatever. It's just, I have this order thing where I'm like, well, this goes here, this goes here, this goes here. There's like a repetition. And it is some kind of OCD or AD. It's not like it's the only thing I'm like that with. It's like everything gets put back the same way. So I know but like I said, I have this awareness that it's like, that's me. This doesn't actually matter. So it's not like I blow up if she puts the fork in the knife section. I'm not going to say, you did it wrong or something like that. I'm just going to be like, I'm going to dry that off and put that away now. And then, and just not worry about it so much. So yeah, and everybody has that.
Yes. Absolutely. We've all got our
because my wife, when she counts money, the money has to be face up in a certain way. And I'm like, you got a little bit of it too. Not like I've got it, but clearly I'm not the only one. It's like, this is a common thing. So,
yeah.
Yeah. So how are you like? Because I know Portland, you've been there for less than a year, right? Or is it a year?
Almost a year, coming up on a year. Okay. Absolutely loving it. One of the first things for me is, so I, way back now, it's been many years, was diagnosed as gluten intolerant. And this place is gluten intolerant heaven, in the sense that, there were some places sometimes in California where I would have to I'll just get the salad, no croutons, right? Because the place, literally everywhere here has at least one thing that's gluten-free. Many places are exclusively gluten-free, and I'm just intolerant, so I don't have to have the like separate oils and all that kind of stuff. You make your fries over here, or you make your fries over here. Thank goodness. But yeah, that's been amazing. It just has made it more possible for me to kind of enjoy those experiences with friends whenever, we're going out, where I'm not necessarily like having some anxiety about it ahead of time. Like, oh boy, what am I going to eat there? Or can we even go to this restaurant? And then we were lucky that one of my partner's high school friends, who he stayed in touch with over the years, lives in Portland. And so shortly after we moved here, we met up with her, and I met her for the first time. Wonderful person. And she had a close group of friends who she introduced us to, and we have all become this great group of friends. It's the people that I'm running the D&D for. So quickly establishing a good friend group has been really awesome as well. Big thing here, backyard. Dogs love having a yard. They love it. And so that's been wonderful on my end of things, like seeing them be able to have that experience again, because again, they are originally Missouri dogs and they were born there, lived there. So they had yards until until I moved them to California. I think when it comes to Portland, I think I'm just now getting used to nothing having sales tax. It's taken a long time to get used to that. That's been one kind of interesting experience. But they definitely do make up for it in other ways.
Yeah, that's what I love when people are like, oh, there's no, I'm like, do you think they're not going to find the money somewhere? They're going to find the money somewhere.
And
it's just, they're going to shuffle it somewhere. Of course, they always do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
at the end of the year,
that's the way it works.
They say, hey, I've got about 50 different ways that I'm going to take your money, which, you know what, it's a shuffle, right? but in Washington, of course, the opposite, where with no income tax, all the rest of their taxes are higher. So yeah, it's always a way to get to. But anyway, that has been interesting, just in its own way. But I I'm trying to think if there's anything kind of obviously being further away from the tech scene. I didn't this year get an invite to WWDC. I have in years past. I did not get one this year, but I'm glad that I didn't, because it would not have been as easy to go being further away. And I've gotten a few invites to things, different tech events where I'm going, I don't think I'm going to be able to make that work. So that's a little bit harder. But the work that we do at Twit is mostly not the event stuff anyway. It's, after the event, or if it is coverage, it's the coverage that we want to do ourselves. And so that works out for what I'm doing right now.
And I was going to say, outside of the socialization to see people, I mean, do you really miss the events anymore? Is it because everything is online now? It's all,
yes,
you get the
exactly,
news so quickly. So
it's distracting, frankly. Yeah, to be there in person is distracting, and
it looks exhausting to me when I see people doing it. I'm like, oh my God, how do you not just collapse in like 7 hours? Because man,
it's socially exhausting. And for me, again, gluten intolerant, I would find myself at the end of the many, many hours because you wake up early. For me, being so close, no reason to stay in town. So you wake up really, really early, you drive all that way, you get your coffee, you spend the whole day doing all this, that, and the other. You have a granola bar that is gluten-free, and then you spend the rest of the day doing this, that, and whatever. You're trying to go around and get photos and do all this other stuff. And then by the time you're in the car on the way back, you realize you've had like 200 calories for the day. And yeah, and I did that both times. And I'm like, I can't, it's not, not fun. It wasn't fun. I mean, it was fun. It was really fun to have gotten to do it the first time. And it was fun to do it the second time because, again, seeing people and everything. But the unfun parts of it were I think, crucial parts of it that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm bad about feeding myself. So yeah, realizing afterward, like, why are you so exhausted? Well, no wonder you're so exhausted. You have no energy that you've put into your body today. And then also, a unique aspect of tech conferences that haunts me to this day is never, ever, ever, ever feeling like you've done enough or captured enough or taken advantage of the situation enough. And I don't mean taking advantage in a negative connotation, but used the access that you have in ways that are beneficial. And it's kind of nice to not have that pressure, because I remember back when I worked at a company called Newsy, that is now I think called Scripps News, although I think it may have just been shut down. But anyway, back when it was a startup, I remember putting together a proposal to get them to foot the bill for us to go to CES. And because I led the team of tech writers at the company and was trying to get us to do that coverage because I thought it'd be great. So got them to give us the money, very little money, and go. And yeah, just the whole time feeling like, oh God, they've invested, and is this enough? Is this enough? Is this enough? And needing to be present there, but then also be present with the people who are back in Missouri, trying to make sure that was all in place. And then going to CES for, I think I did it for Mobile Nations as well. Really also felt that I was never doing enough. So yeah, that's always been the case at every tech conference. So I'm not going to lie, it is nice to not have that pressure. And yeah, just not have that hanging over my head. And there were some cases where the feedback was, hey, we could have done with more from the event. And I'm going, okay, I can only do what I can do, but okay. And yeah, that's just not fun when you're already doing the most that you could do, just being there and, finding the opportunities that you're able to. So yeah, I don't know. I think I still would recommend at least one of these, tech conference, tech experiences for people who are anywhere in this kind of field, just to have had the experience, almost so that you can just, you being, the person out there who's thinking about it, can see for yourself, oh, this is not exactly what I thought it was, or this is not what
I
it's
went
all
to
cracked up to be.
CES once and I was like, I'm never doing this again. This is miserable. I mean, don't get me wrong, you've seen neat stuff, but it's like you said, it is difficult, I think. Like I'm a big fan of Michael Fisher's Mr. Mobile, and I see the stuff he does, and I just sit there and go, I don't even want to, I'm tired watching. I mean, he seems to still enjoy it. Good for him. But I'm just like, man, that is not for me. The only conference I truly, and I'm going to go this year, assuming nothing happens, is I'm going to Adobe Max, because that's the one conference where I feel like there is no downside. All you're seeing are creative people everywhere, and you just get powered up from it. You just suck all of this inspiration out of these people. And it's one of these places where there's no downside to the mania. The mania is all, oh, wow, this is a new thing I could. And I mean, there is a downside because people, and I'm sure you have this too, where you have this internal engine that's running too hard where you're like, oh, I have to do another video. Like I'm happy in a lot of ways I never made any money at doing this, because then I would feel that pressure, and I don't, because I'm just like, this is never going to make money. So I'm going to make whatever I want. I just did a series of videos on the Star Trek films that's like 13 hours. And I don't care, because it was fun. Not because I'm not worried if it makes numbers. I don't care if the metrics on this video I'm not going to, the people's analysis of the thumbnail, I'm like, no. If this is not fun, what's the point? I just don't, and I feel bad for people like Jason Howell, who's trying to make it, and he's got to analyze all that stuff because that's what he's doing. And I'm like, man, I hate that people who are creative and driven have to be this driven to the point of, like, it affects people. Like, there is a mental and physical toll, and it shouldn't be that way. You should be able to create out of a sense of fun and actual investment, not because if this graph does this, I now have to sit up for 2 nights wondering if I can pay my rent, and why, when there is no reasoning to it. I cannot figure out what these algorithms are running on. Everybody's copying each other. It's like, this is just a nightmare. Yes. And everybody has to run that system. It's crazy to me. I can't understand how people do it. I really can't.
Yeah, it saps all of the, I don't know if you watch the What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh my God, it's one of my favorite shows. Oh, yeah, what a show that is.
I mean, that mockumentary is the movie that it's based on. My favorite mockumentary film that exists. But the show, the Energy Vampires, it like the concept of the creator space is an energy vampire. It is every possible way, from every point. It's just taking energy. And I think that is part of how and why I really have moved toward trying to separate the work that I do and my availability to people from my personal life and personal existence. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time outside of work and like standard work hours interacting and engaging, because over the years, and I know I'm a relatively young person, but I have been doing this since 2011, 2012, of being a presence on the internet in some way. And so I've given a lot of myself out there and in ways made myself available to those parasocial relationships. And sometimes people overstep, and
I
because of
felt
all
bad.
of,
I actually felt bad asking you to do this because I'm like, man,
oh, no, see,
no, I do.
I understand.
Because you said at one point you were like, oh, can we keep it at like 2 hours? And I'm like, and at first I started to answer, and then if you remember, I said a second message. I said, wait a minute, you tell me you're coming on this show. What are you asking me? You're donating your time. If you got to be out in 20 minutes, then you're out in
That's what
20
we'll
minutes,
do.
and I'm not going to. Yeah, it's like I
Right.
literally think I said, actually, you tell me. Wait
Yeah,
a
you
second,
did.
how are you asking me this? So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
I
no,
really,
that's okay.
people don't think about I consider anybody who comes on my show, I work around them top to bottom because like you're donating your time.
Right.
Period. I'm not paying anybody. I ain't got no budget. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's a donation. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. So yeah, no, I get that. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No,
Sorry.
that's okay. I mean, because that goes with it. I've always felt that in our interactions, I've always felt that respect that exists. And so that's never, been an issue. But yeah, because of that, I have sort of given myself permission to separate those two aspects where before I did feel a certain level of guilt about not making myself more available because I thought that I needed to give more. And honestly, like part of that is just being in therapy and learning that was something that was okay to do, like to let go of that guilt. And I still, at times when I feel like I want to be available, and then I can show up and do the different things that I want to do. But yeah, I mean, it's one thing that's been that is kind of an innocent, but I think good example of this aspect of being a voice in someone's ear is that there have been occasions where someone will, respond in a at the time it would have been a tweet or a post or whatever, and they're quoting something that I said, and they're sort of like making a joke with me, and I have absolutely no recollection of when I have said this, what the context is, and so that's just an innocent example of it where I would feel bad going, hey, I'm sorry, but like, what was this about? You've got to give me more context here, because for them, it felt like it was in the moment, right? But for me, you read the list of shows, and I do more than those on occasion too, different game shows and D&D stuff and whatever. And so I can't keep track of all of that stuff in my head. And I think that in some ways it had been detrimental for me to keep track of all of that stuff in my head, to try and have like as much awareness of every single thing that's going out, exactly when it's going out, how it's going out. I'm blessed to have a team of people that help with that at Twit, at the main thing that I do, and so yeah, just in those moments where before I would feel kind of guilty, like, oh wow, this person's trying to interact with me and I'm not able to show up for them because I don't even remember what this was about. Being able to let that go and say, you know what, you've done 7 shows since that point, and it's okay that you don't remember this, one-off comment that you made that was a funny joke that they're, trying to interact with, and that's a mostly innocent thing. But then there have also been not so innocent things like people watching a show where, I accidentally show my phone number, for half a second, and then we quickly switch away, and the final episode doesn't have it in there. And yet someone had to have in that moment captured it or somehow, got it. And then they start texting me, and they're not texting me to say, hey, I wanted to let you know that your phone number, showed up in this episode. They're just texting me like they know me. It's just kind of like, look, it's not the case that where someone grew up is incredibly informative to who they are as a person, because we all learn things over time. But I do think that my sort of basic firmware for manners is very much informed by my Midwestern heritage. And I just could never imagine doing that to someone. So it always boggles the mind when something like that happens, where I'm like, my brain would never go there. And so there's a part of me that's like, I want to know more about you because I want to know how you thought that was the appropriate action to take. You know what I mean? But what do you do?
Yeah, it is a strange thing because that parasocial thing, and especially now because, and this has always been for me, because for a long time I never did video, I never said my last name, any of that stuff. Because I was so overly paranoid about that. And then at one point I went, yeah, I'm not one of the Rolling Stones. I'm not that worried. And, also I'm just very careful about things. But I have thought about that because so many creators, and I'm not, I think, inauthentic. I hate the word authentic, but I know it's what everybody knows the word as. So I'm not a character on any of my shows. I am who I am. But there are people I feel like, because they build all their stuff around, oh, you're all my family and my friends. And I'm like, man, that is such a dangerous thing to say, because it is a weird kind of modern concept that you can, for example, I don't do any research on people I talk to. I didn't look up your Wikipedia. I don't look at any of that because to me, there is something off about that. Even though an interviewer would do that work, I'm not an interviewer. I don't pretend to be one. So literally, I watched your Jason Howell episode, and that's the most recent thing outside of the normal Twit stuff where I was like, oh, I don't want to repeat something if Jason covered it, right? So I don't just want to ask you the same question. But to me, part of this is, if I know the answer, why am I asking you? There's nothing there for me in that. But people who spend hours and hours and hours watching, and I have a bit of this, like I tend to show up in the book clubs that Twit does, in the Club Twit thing. And there's a part of me that's like, are they sick of me? Should I not show up? Am I crossing a line to pop in to talk about the book? And I don't honestly know, but I kind of try to sense it.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
I would think
you're trying to sense it, right? And that's why, that is why I'm sure that they don't feel that way. They're not sick of you. They're not, because you're having that mindfulness about it. And I think that's the difference, is you saying, hey, I want to be aware of how I'm showing up and if I'm taking up too much space in the situation. But you touched on, I think, a really important aspect of this, which is that in this modern sort of world where many a person can be a creator in some way and put stuff out there, and we don't have the Medicis funding an artist individually, where you have people being funded by a group of people who are interested in what they're doing all together. The way that the patronage system works, I think that we as creators, we have to acknowledge that part of what we're doing is relying on the function of a parasocial relationship. That's why many people in many cases, not in every case, but in many cases, they're latching on to a personality. And so that's where I think I've felt sort of the guilt exists in that space, where it gets into a sense of hypocrisy that I want to avoid, and I want to toe the line, because I know that by the very nature of the work that I do, and in particular, I've talked about the platonic intimacy of having a voice so close to you. A podcast means having a voice so close to you, literally whispering in your ear, essentially. That is going to form a parasocial relationship to some extent. And we rely on that because that's what leads to members and people being interested in what we're doing and having them come back and having them support us. And so it's finding that balance where I don't feel like I'm being taken advantage of, but I also don't feel like I'm taking advantage of the person on the other end. And I think that's what's taken so long for me to dial in. And for me, that means when I'm available and I'm on and I'm doing the thing, I'm trying to be as present as possible and, do what I've promised to do. And I think one of the ways that I really sort of put my money where my mouth is are the crafting corner things that I do once a month. It's a great time, and it really is a hangout time where people just come and we chat and we talk about all sorts of things. And that is where I kind of I drain the guilt meter in a way, because that feels like a time where I'm connecting with the audience as was promised as part of the agreement. And I think that, that's where I have sort of struggled in the past, where I'm going, I think we all can go, as much as we complain about the overstepping of a parasocial relationship, it is an integral aspect of the work that we do as creators. Unless you're just such a subject exclusive individual that you could be anyone talking about this thing, and it's really just someone after that thing, whatever it happens to be. Yeah. And I think that that's been the way of things since the introduction of the pop star. That has had to be something that people need to reconcile with is this idea that, we are in some ways relying on people forming a connection to us, even though we don't have the ability or the wherewithal to form a connection with all of them.
We don't have, you don't have the time. I mean, the idea,
exactly.
especially with large audiences, is how could you, this is why I'm never really all that upset that our shows never become all that popular or made any money, because it's allowed me in many shows say, you know what, if you don't like how somebody lives their lifestyle, stop listening, get lost. I don't want you here. I just don't want you. I don't want you listening. I can do that because this isn't my primary source of revenue. If it was, and that's what I mean about, I really do feel terrible for a lot of people who have to try to manage that if it's their primary thing, because they must have to make a compromise somewhere to feel like, because you're right, there's people who have that expectation. And I think it is celebrity. Ever since there's been celebrity, that line has been nebulous and moved around. And classically, you've seen it all through the time celebrity. There's been, John Lennon getting shot, stalkers, everything. It's not new, but it is the bombing of the access that now brings so many more people. I mean, somebody had to go find John Lennon. That person had to do a lot of effort compared to what now somebody could do to anybody through whatever internet, or, hire somebody who knows what they're doing. There's unfortunately so much more avenue for abuse. The other side is, of course, there's avenues of support for people that never existed before, because you can now find communities, and it is that double-edged sword of, everybody, the internet sucks. Yes, it does over here. But the reality is there were people who were stuck in corners of the world where what they were going through, nobody knew what they were going through. Nobody was listening to them. Nobody understood it or didn't want to understand it. And now those people, so there is the other side of it. And that's why, so the parasocial part is the kind of dangerous area. But like I said, you don't have to be on TV now to make videos and be supported. And the nice part is you can make videos about the most obscure, weird, 1920s Polish watches manufactured in one corner of the world with a specific leather band because the water there was used to tan that leather in such a way that nobody else can. Now you have a channel for that. And you can be like, wow, really? Somebody made those? So it is a strange modern thing. But really the only part of it that is different is now the access, which is good and bad. So, and I don't, like I said, it's such a weird thing because it's so easy to slip into that. And I think we all are susceptible to it, to be able to think that you know somebody because you've seen them or listened to them for hours and hours. It's actually, there's a funny thing with this because I was messing with my audio settings. I couldn't get the microphone how I wanted it. So there's a couple of friends of mine who do audio stuff. And there was a point where they were like, oh, try this setting. And it sounded like I was right here. And I went, no, I don't like that. It's too close. Like, I don't want somebody that close to my ear. How do I back that off a bit and then figure it out? So that, because there are like the NPR thing where it's like, hello, everybody. Yeah. Whoa, stop. Stop. That's my wife or my dog should ever be that close to me.
Yeah.
That's it. I don't want anybody else within that realm of space. But yeah, that's that whole thing of that false sense of intimacy is both a old thing, but I feel like that is something that is, especially because we can see everybody. Again, with celebrities, you saw them in a movie, but you didn't see them walking around. So you'd see him in the movie. You might not see that person for a year unless you happen to live in Hollywood and saw him walking around or whatever. But now a modern person on YouTube, you can see them all the time. And you start to kind of pick things up. And it's like, oh, well, I know them. It's like, well, you know what they are in this context, but you don't really know. And I do think it's a tricky thing to reckon with because it is seductive to think that seeing somebody means you know them. And I don't know what the fix for that is. I don't, because there's just so much content all the time. And people who are content creators primarily seem to have to make more and more of it. So you're going to see more. So it's almost like a loop where it's like, not only do you see them a lot, but you're going to have to keep seeing them a lot because otherwise they can't be successful. And this idea that if I support them monetarily, do they owe me something?
Exactly. Yep. And that is tricky. Where things get, they get tricky very, very easily. And yeah, navigating that is.
Sorry, that wasn't a question. So I kind of just led you into a blind alley on that. So sorry.
No, that's fine. Because I'm kind of, that last part of it though is I think where the presumption, right, ends up playing itself out. Particularly, this is the thing. For every one negative interaction, there are many, many more people who are listening and who, never interact and everything's fine. So, this stuff's few and far between, but it tends to be that if somebody's going to interact in that way, then they do have that presumption. They do have all of this stuff. The whole formula is there of I have paid and I know you and you know me because I have been in the chat or whatever. I've sent you an email or whatever it happens to be. And so 1 + 1 + 1 = pay attention to me or things are going to go poorly. And that can be frightening. I feel lucky, blessed, knock on wood, that I haven't had but maybe 2 of those in this like my career thus far. And I hope that it, stays at that counted on one hand sort of situation. But yeah, I think that last point that you made there is really an aspect of it, the money that's involved. But if you have to go from, as we did at Twit, a place where the people who were paying for things were the people were not people, they were organizations, they were companies, to now, this membership method. The fact is, I think that the people are owed what we have said that they are granted by having a membership, and anything outside of that is not part of that. But you just can't expect that everybody is going to, get that, and that's fine. I'm trying to think of something more positive that we can sort of wrap our conversation with.
Well, let's end with this. Let's do as a final thing, because you said that you run D&D games. Yeah. Now, as I said, I've never in my entire life played D&D. The irony is my one real commercial illustration job was for Magic the Gathering, which is cards that I know nothing about. So people have said, "Oh, that's a really great card." And I'm like, "Uh-huh. Okay, I don't know." And they're like, "Oh, it's a commander card." And I'm like, Wonderful. What does that mean? I literally, the one that I liked is apparently a weak card. So the illustration I like the best is like, well, yeah, nobody's going to want that. It's a weak card. I'm like, but it looks neat.
Man.
Oh, I don't care.
It's so cool.
Listen, you know what? I didn't have because the Magic card games were never my thing. So I had no awareness of it. So it
How
wasn't
did you get
clear
the
to
gig?
Me. They found me they saw my work on Behance on the Adobe portfolio, which I wasn't promoting. I don't know anybody. It was out of nowhere. There was an illustration that I did, which also was an unusual one for me because it was a stained glass style, which I almost never do. I did one that I thought was good enough to put up there, and the art director saw it, and they were doing this subset of cards that they wanted to be like stained glass. So it's just synchronicity. But honestly, I think it's the only piece at that time I had on the thing that looked like that. Everything else was not like it. It's more cartoony stuff.
Wow.
And I thought it was a scam. I got an email, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, you're coming to me, who's a nobody and doesn't paint and do all that wonderful fantasy work that a lot of those are. I mean, these people are top tier artists, and my stuff is nothing like that. So I'm like, sure. So I did the basic due diligence, which I guess makes me smarter than some people. So always look things up. I was like, okay, this person does work there. So I emailed that person outside of that email, and I said, this was sent to me. Is this you? And I did not expect to hear back. I'm like, she's going to come back and say, no, who are you? And I'm like, okay, never mind. Thank you. That's what I need. And she said, oh, no, yeah, it was me. We think you're a good fit for this. And I'm like, really? I didn't say this, obviously.
Right. Yeah. Like, at this point, you're
sure?
like, okay, play it cool.
Did you smash your head in a car accident lately? So I'm like, sure, I'll do that. And then at one point they were like, well, how many cards do you want to do? And
you tell me, people. Like, what?
Well, it wasn't even that. I'm sitting here going, I've never done this. I don't want to say I've never done it before. So I'm like, what do I think I can even do? Because
right. Yeah. See, yeah,
I don't want to say
give me
cool,
10. Right?
Yeah. So I'm like, 3 to see if they'd say, well, can you do more? And they're like, okay, that's fine. I'm like, oh, good. 3 is fine. I'm like, and I didn't even know I really did not know if I could do it because I've never worked to a deadline.
Right.
I do things for people like you. It's like, oh, somebody needs something. Okay, here, there you go. You're done, whatever. So they had all this, like I had to do an NDA and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? It's like
it starts to get intimidating. Yeah.
I had one day where I'm like, I almost was just like falling apart. Cause I'm like, if I blow this, there is 0 chance I ever get a shot like it again. Like they will tell other people, do not go to him. So I'm like, am I actually going to be able to, and I'm looking at the other artwork too. And I'm sitting there going, why do they want me? This is not what I do. But it worked out really well. So it was just dumb luck. And this is one of these things where I see all these people now and I never really noticed before. I was like, oh, I wish I could work from it. And I'm like, man, I will never complain if it never happens again, because all these people would die to be able to do 1 card. And I got 3.
That's awesome.
And the community's been fantastic. I mean, the people, I have one I'm working, you probably can't see it. It's on the drawing board back there, but there's one. And like, even this one, I hope this person isn't watching. I did something and I was like, oh no, I went a little bit over on the line. I hope they don't notice it. And I'm like, I don't even know if they're going to like this. And I sent it to them and they're like, this is great. And I'm like, all right, good. It still happens. It's not like I suddenly am like, yeah, I'm a magic artist now, so I'm great. It's like, no. But I played Baldur's Gate 3, which I know is based on.
Yes.
And I had a blast with that game. So I'm sitting there going, I understand now, 47 years or whatever later. I'm like, oh, I see the appeal of this, because I'm not generally a swords and sorcery person, really, but I accidentally created, and there are gameplay videos if anybody wants to experience this, because it is wild. I unintentionally created a highly, what's the word for it? A highly promiscuous, completely open to everything wood elf. And I had a blast because I'm like, that's not me at all, but whatever. And everybody I came up to, I was like, hi, how's it going? And the character's facial animation just did it. I didn't do that. And it was hysterical because I was like, every single person, I'm like, all right, let's go. And my co-host who was playing with me, he's like, man, you are having way too good a time. I'm like, this is wild. It's great. But I do now see the appeal of it. So did you always play? Was D&D something you got into really young and right away understood it was something you liked?
No, so it's funny. It was because of podcasting. So I had been on Jason Snell's The Incomparable Network before for some different shows. So Christina Warren, who now works at Google, used to work at GitHub. She and I did a podcast at The Incomparable called Cartooncast, and it was a show where we talked about like cartoons made for adults, and we just kind of The Simpsons and Futurama and different shows and broke them down. And then I think I had done a couple more things, maybe a game show or two here and there. And then Tony Sindelar, who is one of the main DMs for the Incomparable Network's Total Party Kill podcast, put out the call for doing D&D. And it was him and it was Dan Morin, who is my co-host on Clockwise. And they were doing it. And I said, oh, I've always wanted to play, but, that's kind of scary because I've never done it before, and we're going to be doing it as a podcast. And I don't know, I think I am a baptism by fire kind of guy. That's one subset of ADHD is like, it's going to keep me engaged because I've got a lot of things to think about all at once. And so I said, yeah, I'll be interested. And honestly, it was because of the dungeon mastering style of Tony Sindelar, and the rest of the group as well, that I stayed with it. I think that if it was as difficult as I found to sort of get off the ground as it was, and my group was not as patient and open and explaining as this group was, if I didn't have that group and had that first experience, I would have probably stopped playing. But having that first experience, but having a great DM and group made it so that I wanted to keep playing, and then slowly but surely got better. And I mean, I'm still learning new things even to this day about, oh, that's actually what this formula means behind the scenes. It's an addition of a proficiency bonus plus, because you have, a 2 in dexterity or whatever, and that comes together to equal this. I'm still learning new things all the time for the game's mechanics, but it's gotten easier over time based on the different tools that are available. And so, yeah, I basically just said, I'm going to give it a shot. And it was fun, even though it required like a lot of me asking questions to get what was going on. And then I continued to play as a player for a really long time before I decided to run a campaign as a DM in person. And shortly after, actually it was after the first session, then 2 of the players moved away to a different state. And so then we stopped. So my first DM role, the game fell apart after 1 session. But then after that, I struck up a game with some friends online where I was DMing and had a great time. And so I would say primarily these days I run campaigns as opposed to play in them. But I do still do shows over on the Incomparables Total Party Kill podcast where I'm a player as well. So yeah, my longest campaign was the one that I did for the Incomparable, where I play a half-elf druid named Elevor. And so to this day, that's still my favorite character that I've ever made, because obviously he's been with me the longest. I've been with him the longest. But yeah, no. So as a kid, grew up very religious, and that meant that a lot of the stuff was not allowed. Like I couldn't.
Oh,
I
right.
couldn't watch,
D&D was always associated with like
Satanic
Satanism and
Panic.
stuff. That's right. I remember that from when I was younger. Yeah, that's right.
So there would have been no, I mean, this was as bad for us as there's this PBS kids show called Dragon Tales. And it's about these little kids who find a magic dragon scale. And when they rub the scale, it transports them to this other world where they're friends with these dragons and they get to go around and learn, to be nice to people. But because dragons are serpents and serpents are the devil, we couldn't even watch that PBS Kids show. So there was no way in the world that I would have ever been able to play D&D. So I didn't even know about it as a kid. When the Harry Potter films came out, I remember that I was with some friends and I didn't know that we were going to go see the Harry Potter film, but we were. And I sat with my hands over my eyes the whole movie because I was worried that if I watched it, I was going to be in trouble with the big guy upstairs. So yeah, very, very like a lot of the pop culture of my youth and even, like a few decades behind me, I just did not have any exposure to until high school, late high school or later. So yeah, I just didn't even know about D&D. Like that's the thing though. D&D was so far away from me that I didn't know about the satanic panic stuff until much later when I mentioned it. Really what happened was, I mentioned it to my mom and my mom said, don't tell grandma that you're playing that because she's going to worry you're going to get possessed by a demon. And I said, okay, I will definitely avoid telling her that. So yeah, that's why I did not know about it as a kid, and found out about it later. And I love both aspects. I love playing the characters. I started out by playing a character.
Say, is there a side of it you prefer more? Is it now more fun to do the architecting and then watch it unfold type of thing?
Yeah. So at first it was, I would have said that being a player was the way that I liked because of the ability to try to embody a character, starting out as a character that I felt was like myself, and then branching out from there to play different characters. But as a DM, I get to play so many different characters and getting to interact with, 3 or 4 people and see the different ways that they interact with these characters that I bring to the table. And I love doing, voices and accents and all sorts of stuff. The role play aspect of it is a lot of fun for me, but then it is also fun, having knowing what's going to happen next or thinking you're going to know what's going to happen next. Because of course it just depends on how the players do things, is a lot of fun as well. And then as I mentioned with the ADHD, that aspect of you have to just come up with stuff on the fly and figure out how things are going to play out is so central to what is engaging to me. And I think that I know that there's more of that as a DM or GM, because that's, depending on it's a dungeon master or game master. That is so central to what you do as the DM that, yeah, now, I would much rather DM than be a player. But I still find a lot of moments of joy as a player, particularly, as I said, when I am embodying a character that's not like me and having those opportunities for role play with others and just seeing how they react to, the character that you're portraying. So it's a lot of fun.
That was the fun part about the Baldur's Gate thing, because it wasn't, like I said, intentional. And it was just one of these funny things where I'm like, oh, this is a wildly different character. But the thing that I really loved about that game in particular, and then there's another game similar to it called Wasteland 3, which is much more science fiction, cyberpunk, is my co-host and I would really sit there and stop and go, okay, what is the morality of what we're going to do here? I mean, we would have these long discussions because that's the stuff I'm the most interested in. Is I don't want a binary good, bad. Yeah. I want it to be because there was a point, you said you played Baldur's Gate 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this isn't really a spoiler because this happens really early, but you encounter you go into a cave and there's an owlbear mother who's been injured and there's a young one. And there was a point where I'm like, oh, okay. And I think, I thought there was something where they said, oh, they're going to be attacked or whatever. I'm like, all right, we'll go back and save the owlbear mother. So we'll do this thing and then we'll get back there and we'll defend her. And as far as I know, you can't. And I was so angry
Yeah.
I think while we were recording when I did it, where I was swearing my head off that we couldn't. I was like, this is. I'm like, I don't know a lot to complain in this game about so far, but this is one. The fact that you can't get back here.
Yeah.
And because I didn't realize that the one that shows up later is the cub.
Yeah.
My co-host figured it out.
Oh,
I'm like,
really?
wait a minute. So wait. So that's when I'm like, the mother can't be sent. And I was infuriated. I was really pissed about that for a while.
Yeah.
But Wasteland 3 is like that too, where there's certain decisions where we really debated the morality. Like there's a part where a woman figures out, and again, this isn't a spoiler because it's like the first mission that you do, that her boyfriend let all these people in and got her family killed, and she doesn't know it until you find them. And she's like, I want to kill him. And we stopped there and we're like, okay, should we let this young woman do this? Because she's really young.
It's going to impact her. Yeah. It's not just going to be a revenge situation, but the impact that it'll have on her psyche. And then whether you should be the one who gets to decide what somebody else does is also,
yes.
Yeah. That's
and
a
the
lot.
first time we let her do it, because I said, if it was me, I would just do it and I wouldn't even ask. I mean, I would have just immediately killed that person. So I'm like, no, let her do it. I mean, we came across the parents and her younger brother burned in a pit. I'm like, oof. I can't tell this woman that she can't do this. Yeah. And it did screw with her for a while. We got her through it. You get her through it. It's a very tough thing to keep that character the whole way through, but we managed it. But the second time we were like, you don't want to do this. We're going to arrest him. Let him face justice. This is going to wreck you. And the irony is, then she got angry and she left the party and she didn't come back.
Aww.
But we sat there and went, if that's the cost to know you didn't inflict damage, yeah, I'm okay with it. But that's the kind of stuff I love, is like that kind of wrestling with it and figuring it out. So if you ever, I don't know how much, I don't know how much you play as far as like video games or anything like that now. But if you ever get the chance, Wasteland 3 is a good one, and you can play a co-op, so you can find somebody and play it with. And that has a lot of that morality, and it's actually it's a well-told game.
I will have to tell my partner about it because I'm not a big gamer. But
tell him about it.
He is.
He might like it a lot.
Yeah, I'll have to tell him about Wasteland 3.
And it's pretty cheap. It's not a very expensive game because it's been out for a while, so it's relatively inexpensive. One other thing, though, I will suggest to you before we close here is there is a game called Void 1680 AM. It's $10. And it's basically 1680 AM. And the premise is did you ever listen to Coast with Art Bell back in the days when conspiracy theories were fun?
I don't think so.
Okay. He would let any lunatic call in and just spout. And like I said, this is before conspiracies became what they are now. This is back when it was kind of fun to think about aliens and everything else. I mean, that part's still fun. But this thing is, you are the host, but you also play the callers. And it's like you have to roll dice to create the scenario. And then people have created playlists of their calls and interactions, and they can put them online so that people can listen to them. So you're playing the host as well as the callers. And then the scenarios are randomized. So the person might call and say, there's a ghost in my house and it won't stop, cleaning my dishes. And that's my job. And then you have to try to respond, and you get to create like I said, it sounds like something, if you like doing voices, that you might be interested in. Like I said, it's delightful. $10. Yeah. It's like nothing. And a lot of people have posted these, and I've listened to some of them, and they're wild. They really are. They're great. So
I'm definitely checking this out. I've never done a solo RPG or TTRPG before. I see them pop up a lot, and I've never done one. So that'll be fun. Oh, I'll definitely be checking this out.
Yeah. So that's the thing I'm going to leave you with. So I'm going to thank you very much for taking all this time because we've been here for about 2 hours, which is a long stretch of time for somebody to talk. So especially since you walked into this knowing nothing about whether I would be a complete maniac or not. I mean, you went in blind.
I was hopeful. I was hopeful you wouldn't be a maniac, and I'm glad I had that hope.
Once in a while, it works out. So I will remind everybody that you can find Mikah's work over at twit.tv, iOS Today, I'm reading because I've never memorized this, Tech News Weekly, Hands on Mac, Hands on Tech, as well as Clockwise over on relay.fm and chihuahua.coffee for everything else. So Micah, thank you so much. This was such a great time, and I had a blast. And the thing that I actually really wanted, which was barely to talk about tech at all, because the whole reason I really started these was for people who got burned out on one topic and just wanted to do something where they didn't talk about it. So we barely talked about tech at all. So mission accomplished. Is there anything I missed? Did I miss anything? You want to promo anything I forgot?
No, that takes care of it. Just CHIHUA.coffee. I always like to spell it out.
And like I said, I will have it in the show notes. It will be in the lower thirds of the finished video. So it should be very, very simple. Once again, thank you. And thank you everybody for listening and watching. And until next time, whatever that ends up being, take care, everybody.